Mr. Chen, wait! The words tore from her throat before she could stop them. 24 hours earlier, Sarah Martinez had been just another face in the crowd, a freelance Mandarin interpreter scraping by in one of the world's most expensive cities. At 32, she lived in a shoebox apartment in Queens, sent money home to her mother in the Bronx every month, and took whatever translation jobs she could find. The corporate gig at the International Business Summit in Shanghai was supposed to be her big break, the kind of paycheck that would finally let her breathe. She'd never expected it to cost her everything. The assignment seemed straightforward enough. Shadow Richard Chen, a Chinese-American tech millionaire, during his 3-day visit to finalize a partnership worth $40 million. Sarah's job was simple: translate, stay invisible, and collect her fee. She'd researched Chen obsessively on the flight over. Self-made entrepreneur, donated millions to children's hospitals, lost his wife to cancer 2 years ago and now raised their 7-year-old daughter alone. The first 2 days passed without incident. Sarah translated business proposals, dinner conversations, and pleasantries with mechanical efficiency. Chen barely looked at her. She was part of the furniture, a human Google Translate. She told herself she didn't mind. This wasn't about connection. It was about survival. But on the third morning, everything changed. Sarah had arrived early at the hotel, clutching her second coffee and reviewing her notes in the lobby. That's when she saw them, 2 men in security uniforms, speaking rapidly in Shanghainese, a dialect distinct from Mandarin. They didn't know she understood it. Most Americans didn't. Her blood turned to ice as she caught fragments of their conversation. The American will get in the car at noon. Accident on the highway, no witnesses. A payment after it's confirmed. Sarah's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, hot liquid splashing across the white marble. The guards glanced her way, their conversation dying instantly. One of them smiled, a cold reptilian expression that made her stomach lurch. She stood frozen, her mind racing. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen. Except they did. She knew they did. She'd read the stories, heard the whispers about foreign businessmen who came to China and never left, about deals that went sour and people who disappeared. Richard Chen was going to die today, and she was the only person who knew. The rational part of her brain screamed at her to stay silent. She had no proof. The guards would deny everything. If she made accusations, she'd be deported, blacklisted, lose everything she'd worked for. Her mother depended on her. This job was supposed to change her life. But a 7-year-old girl in California was about to lose her only remaining parent. Sarah spent the next 3 hours in agony. She watched Chen laugh during breakfast, take business calls, check his phone with a smile that suggested his daughter had sent him a message. He was so alive, so unaware that people were plotting his murder. At 11:30, Sarah made her decision. She approached Chen as he gathered his briefcase in the lobby. "Mr. Chen, I need to speak with you privately. Right now." He looked at her with mild surprise. The furniture had spoken. "I have a car waiting. Can this—" "Don't get in that car." Her voice was urgent, barely above a whisper. "Please, trust me." Something in her expression stopped him. He guided her to a quiet corner, his eyes sharp and assessing. "You have 30 seconds to explain." The words tumbled out. The guards. The conversation in Shanghainese. The planned accident. She watched his face shift from skepticism to cold fury to calculated calm. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked quietly. "You could lose your job." "Probably will." Sarah thought of her cramped apartment, her mother's medical bills, the years of struggling to build credibility in her field. Then she thought of a little girl opening the door to police officers with terrible news. "Because it's the right thing to do," she said simply. Chen studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made 3 calls, one to his head of security in the States, one to the American consulate, and one to a contact in the Chinese government who owed him favors. Within 20 minutes, the hotel was swarming with legitimate police. The guards were gone. So was the black sedan. Chen canceled his remaining meetings and insisted Sarah accompany him to the consulate for her protection. On the drive there, in a different car, with verified security, he finally looked at her as a human being. "You saved my life," he said. Most people would have walked away. Sarah shrugged, trying to ignore the trembling in her hands. Most people aren't fluent in Shanghainese. That's not why you did it. His voice was gentle. You barely know me. I know you have a daughter. The words came out rough. I know she already lost her mother. I couldn't let her lose you too. Chen's eyes glistened. He turned to look out the window, his jaw working. What's your mother's name? The question surprised her. Rosa, why? Because when my daughter asks me someday why she still has a father, I want to be able to tell her about Rosa's daughter, the interpreter who chose kindness over self-preservation. Sarah learned later that the assassination attempt had been orchestrated by Chen's business rival, a man who stood to gain millions if the partnership fell through. The guards were arrested. The plot unraveled. Chen returned safely to California. As for Sarah, she did lose the corporate job. Word spread that she'd caused a diplomatic incident. Companies stopped calling. But 3 weeks after returning to New York, a lawyer showed up at her door. Richard Chen had established a scholarship fund in her name for underprivileged language students. He'd also hired her as his personal interpreter at triple her previous rate, with the caveat that she could work remotely and set her own hours. The letter he included was brief. Thank you for reminding me that money means nothing if we lose our humanity. My daughter thanks you too, Sarah cried when she read it, sitting on the floor of her tiny apartment. Then she called her mother and told her she could finally afford that surgery she needed. 6 months later, Sarah received a photo in the mail. It showed Richard Chen and his daughter on a beach, building sandcastles, laughing. On the back, in a child's careful handwriting, were 3 words, "Thank you for Daddy." She kept that photo on her desk for the rest of her life, a reminder that sometimes the right choice is the hard choice, and that kindness, however costly, always compounds into something greater than we can imagine. In a world that often rewards self-interest, Sarah Martinez had proven that humanity's greatest currency isn't wealth or success. It's the courage to protect a stranger even when it costs us everything we have.